We only have a short 25 minutes here. I'm going to call our meeting to order.
I only read the editorials. I don't read
I was going to say, we read
All right.
everything except the editorials.
Let's do a
35, I think.
let's do a quick round of introductions. Perry, if you wouldn't mind leading us off.
Terry Hansen.
Chip Malcolm.
Vanna Damery. Jory Jacobite.
Suzanne Bach. Mary Cullinane.
Victoria Jetty.
Peter Burrows, Superintendent.
Peter Conlon.
Lorraine Morse.
Jen Newcedar. Peg Martin.
Steve Orzak.
Vicki Wells, Assistant Superintendent of Student Services.
Go through it. Brittany. We'll get you while your mouth is full. Did you get the camera on her while she's chewing?
Zoom in. Brittany Gilman, business manager. First trying to work in 12 months.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Betsy, couple of them.
Very nice to see you. And given you're the only member of the public here, did you have anything to bring up during public comment period? All right, thank you. Okay. How about a motion to approve the minutes from February 4th?
Second.
Got a move and a second. And any discussion? Anything anybody wants to do with these? Hearing nothing. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Great. Okay, bills.
There are three sets of bills. The first one from the 11th of February. Victoria and I read them. Total district funds $73,431.14 and payroll expenses of $1,040,412.83 for a total of $1,113,843.97. Next week, on 2/18, a total of $113,994.54 of general funds and payroll expenses of $827,792.31 for a total of $941,786.89. And then yesterday's, which is the ones we like, is a total of $96,369.44 and payroll expenses of $21,483.21 for a total of $117,852.65. See, it's a good one through.
Sell it as really.
Victoria and I read those, and the week before, Mary Gill and I read them. So I make a motion to pay the bills as stated.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded that we approve the bills as reported out. Any questions or comments? All those in favor of approving the bills, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, we paid the bills. And I'll just interject a reminder here for folks that these microphones that are on our tables are very sensitive, so if you're chewing, banging dishes, chatting, it picks them up, picks everything up pretty well.
I'm glad you said that.
All right, so we just had a little committee time, and so we thought we'd put on report of board committees on there. However, we're all getting together tomorrow night
We sure are.
to talk about planning, so I don't know if you have anything that you need to report.
I don't think anything immediate that can wait till tomorrow.
All right.
Peter, I'll say one thing relative to finance. We basically talked about the quarterly report, which they will present on the main agenda.
It just leaves you, Perry.
We talked about three policies and we're honing in on it. We have some work to do. March 11th, I think, they should be ready to move forward for a vote 2 weeks after that. Is that the first meeting, March 4th, March 11th?
Yeah,
And there will be one,
yeah, right after. Right after.
yeah, so these should move along and be done in March.
These required policies are new.
Two are required. Yeah, I didn't mention what they were. One is the proficiency-based graduation requirements, which is not required, but it defines all the new things that have to be done vis-a-vis the new IB curriculum, so that it's clear what you need to do to graduate.
There's also state statute requirements in there too.
Oh, there is?
Yeah, it's both. It's
Oh,
combined.
we need to add required on that then. I missed that totally.
Yep.
Wow. 3 required. Second one,
But
parental-
it's an existing policy. That
yes,
was-
it's an
yeah.
existing from 17. Yeah, so it's a couple years old. And it's being amended to accommodate IB. I didn't know it was required though. Parental involvement compacts is required, and travel reimbursement, who knew, is required. I thought that should be a procedure, but life is tough.
That's required as a policy.
Yeah. Yep.
All right.
And I would just comment that we go forward without Perry, who has chosen not to run again.
Yes.
Yay.
No.
Is that effective immediately, so he won't be at the March 11th
That would be
meeting?
correct.
You got it.
You can be there and with us, just cheering.
I'll be there in spirit.
They're public
It's in
meetings.
Ripton, right?
They're
Oh,
public
yeah, I
meetings,
can come.
I think
Right.
it's in Ripton.
It's in Ripton, how can you stay away?
I can also be sitting right there in the back.
That's right.
All right. So at 7 o'clock, we have our annual meeting. It's the district's annual meeting as opposed to the board's annual meeting. So we are sort of largely, we will probably make up the bulk of the audience, but that's sort of what we are. So we vote as audience members. It'll be run by the moderator. We really have 2 sort of pieces of business that we have to vote on, we being the entire district of those who turn up, and that's to elect the moderator, elect the clerk, and elect the treasurer. Unless there are other nominations, those have been Jim Douglas, who has agreed to continue as moderator, Michelle Warren, who I assume has agreed to continue as treasurer, and Linda Barrett, who has been our clerk, and hopefully, whether she wants to or not, will probably return to be our clerk.
We're voting the moderator to be the moderator next year?
For tonight.
For tonight,
Yeah.
okay. Well, that's
And to
different
last for the
than, that's
year.
different for town meeting, don't forget, because you usually elect the moderator for the next year.
And then we'll basically take care of that business, and then the meeting, the sort of the official meeting adjourns, and then there'll be a budget presentation, which will largely be run by Brittany and Peter. Take questions from the audience. It's a basically hearing on the budget. And then we adjourn, and that'll be that. Any questions about that? I've been through it before, I think.
It is in the band room.
It's in the band room.
Oh, it is.
Yep. And
Half right.
and there are plenty of seats. I was in there waiting for you all to show up.
We're all your friends.
That's right. All right. So next item on our agenda is kind of an update on our lead testing. Correct?
Yes.
Yes, and I'll just add that Brittany made a trip up to Montpelier today to talk about a bill that, if it makes it through the legislature, will require lead testing and remediation. Should it pass, we will have already taken care of it. It's kind of nice.
Do you want to give a brief summary?
Sure. Excuse me. So we've been working in partnership with Middlebury College to test all the water outlets in ACSD schools. So there was some testing done in the prior year, I think, but we retested 488 outlets in total. An outlet is a water source, so it could be the bathroom sink, water fountains, bottle filling stations, ice machines, classroom sinks, runs the gamut. And we received draft reports from those schools. The final reports are trickling in, and we've communicated with administrators regarding an action plan. So when all the final reports are received, we'll post them on the websites, and we'll provide communication for principals to put in the newsletter, and we'll make that accessible. Overall, our results were fairly positive. So the outlets that were tested, only one I'll call designated water fountain or bottle filling station was identified as having lead higher than the EPA action level, which is 15 parts per billion. But after being flushed for 30 seconds, it went down below that. So, as was the case with most of our results that were above, 1 part per billion, after being flushed for 30 seconds, it almost always went down to that 1 part per billion or non-detectable. So, but we are being more proactive. So the legislature is considering a 3 parts per billion limit, and so that's likely going to pass. And so we've already remediated any water fountain or bottle filling station specifically that was above 3 parts per billion. And in some cases, that just meant disconnecting it for now while we can, get the parts, and some of it requires retrofitting. On a larger scale, there are classroom sinks that are sometimes used for drinking that exceed 3 parts per billion, but are below the 15 parts per billion action level. So we're working on a plan for those, but for now, the plan is to communicate that only water fountains and bottle filling stations should be used for drinking. So there's no immediate risk. It's not above the 15 parts per billion level, but we're sort of operating with an abundance of caution. And the way that the bill is currently written is that we can be reimbursed for 50% of remediation costs. So we're working on placing signage next to sources that are not appropriate for usage as drinking water. One of the 3 T's that, I don't know if you read some of the information about lead in schools, one that's testing and training is the second T. So it's training, it's having protocol about what sources are appropriate for drinking, and some sources you need to have run for 30 seconds. A lot of the sources that tested high are like cold showers in some of the schools that aren't used very often. And then we'll retest any fixtures that have been replaced to ensure that the levels don't exceed 3 parts per billion. We may or may not have to undergo retesting as part of the bill. It's not clear yet whether these results will be accepted or whether we'll have to do more testing, but the testing will be 100% paid for by the state. So that's where we are now.
Thank you.
I have a question. You said that the legislation that has not passed yet would reimburse for remediation.
For 50%.
Are we going to be able to qualify for that if we do it early, or?
Yeah, there is a part in the bill where it talks about like a waiver for people who have done things already. So that's part of the reason why we're not just, going all after classroom sinks right now. We've done the things that are most pressing, and we'll put the brakes a little bit on some of the less immediate issues just to make sure that we're able to get reimbursed, but it looks like we'll be able to. So we're tracking those costs.
Okay.
I'd say that Brittany came up and testified in front of the House Education Committee today on this issue and pointed out that unless we sort of clearly define water sources, old showers and mop bucket sinks versus drinking fountains, that there may not be enough money in the bill to actually get that 50%. So
Yeah.
it's one of the concerns, I think, as we go forward with it.
Yeah.
And it's still going through the House, so it's not,
Yeah, so
it's not a
passed the
done,
Senate.
That's right.
not a done deal, yeah.
The classroom sinks, if they were run for the 30 minutes, did they then pass?
30 seconds.
30
Yeah,
seconds.
so when we talk about pass, we first have to define the level. So I'd have to look again, but I don't think there were any classroom sinks that were above 15 parts per billion, which is the EPA action level. Some were above 3, but below 15, and the overwhelming majority, if you ran for 30 seconds, were like 1 or 2. So it is possible that we could, have that kind of protocol in the interim, but
Well, certainly interim, you could have that.
yeah. But long term, we definitely want to.
And some of this is complicated statewide by lead levels in city water or town water that's based on being under the EPA level, not a 3-part
Right,
level. So
right,
there are
right.
districts that are getting water that's higher than the
Yeah,
required level
yeah.
from the town.
Yeah,
Wow.
so bottled water, for example, the limit is 5 parts per billion. And I think the last testing that Middlebury did on municipal water supply, I think was in 2015, and it was 1.8 parts per billion.
Brittany, is it safe to assume that you're focusing on drinking fountains and water filling stations, but also kitchen supplies
Oh,
for
yes,
cooking? Like that would be part of
yes,
that
anything
higher
that
priority?
would be used for, that would obviously be used for direct consumption, yes.
Thank you. All right, quarter two financial report.
So we knew with Perry leaving that we had to get this done. And here it is. So this is, I'm going to let Brittany talk through this a bit, but I just wanted to introduce it. We've been working to try to create a quarterly report that that's consistent first, second, third, and fourth quarter, that provides both a visual view of where we are and detail that you can access quickly. And Brittany and I have done a lot of research. We've looked at what other school districts do. We haven't been that impressed by what other folks are doing, so we continue to work to try to make this as meaningful as possible. So after the meeting today, as you're back home reviewing this, if you have ideas or things that you'd like to see, if you could let Brittany and I know, we'd appreciate that, as we feel like this is kind of an ongoing, continual improvement type of report. Because school budgeting is always in flux, it's hard for us to predict, for example, in the first quarter report, very much about what the end of the year is going to look like. So part of understanding that is how we've created this report. You want to talk through kind of where we are?
Yeah, so this financial report summary is almost identical to how we present the budget on the summary page in the budget book. So it seems like that's a good way to look at our data where we are now. So we have here our FY19 revised budget, our year-to-date actual, and where we project we will be. So there's a summary sheet, as well as some visuals which show you your budget to actual, or your budget to projected. So essentially I would say we're in a good place. I'm predicting that we'll end the year with about an $845,000 surplus. This number will be in flux. It's a projection for a reason, but let me tell you some of the things that are still I would consider sort of unknown. So HRA usage is one thing that's sort of an unknown. We just finished our first year of the plans, which was January to December. The plans don't run on a fiscal year, they run on a calendar year, so everyone's deductible has reset, so everyone's HRA gets to start over. So we assume sort of a more worst-case scenario, if you will. So we assume that people are going to spend a full 60% of their HRA, and that's how we did the projection here. And also special education time studies, those are being collected and analyzed, and that will affect the amount of time that we're able to put towards special ed and how much reimbursement we're able to get. And if it can't go to special ed, then it has to go to regular ed, and you can't get reimbursed for it. And then some notable variances. In terms of revenues, you'll notice that our local revenues are quite a bit higher than what we had budgeted, and that's due to an increase in tuition billing and an increase in our special education excess cost billing. So we have a new method of billing excess cost. Excess cost is tuition students that are tuitioning into us that are receiving special education services, and we're allowed to bill the districts back. They're sending districts back for that. So the new method, I think, has enabled us to capture a little bit more. And then the tuition billing is just an increase in the number of students that we saw, which has been really beneficial. A lot of that was due to the Rochester Middle and High School closing. So we saw students that we didn't expect. And then in terms of expenditures, we talked about this quite a bit in the first quarter, but there was a significant savings in wages and benefits from early retirements in FY18. And we also talked about how this set us up in a better position for the FY20 budget. And then we're not planning any use of our contingency. We carry our contingency, but it doesn't look like we're going to have to dip into that. So if you take out our contingency, we're at about $500,000 surplus, which is a healthy place to be. It's a little over 1%. And then if you look, you can see our fund balance in prior years, in some cases, has been substantially higher. This past year was quite a bit lower due to a number of factors like more people early retirement, some facility expenditures. Our first year as unification and developing a budget that maybe removes some duplicate executive services. And then if you look, we've spent 58% of our total budget right now, which makes sense. We're a little more than halfway through the year. Another thing that I should mention is that this projection is sort of like a quarter two plus projection. There's no good way to freeze the data, short of downloading an enormous spreadsheet and manipulating that data. So this actually goes through February 15th. So it's a little bit beyond the quarter. Are there any questions?
Three of us on finance, chatted about it, and we felt we were in a pretty good place at this point. And I think Brittany explained it very well, at least those things which we can't always call, and yet you use the word encumber. You encumber certain things throughout the rest of the year, which certainly the big items like salary and benefits and other things are going to be there.
Yeah, that helps us do projections. We encumber payroll, so it means we reserve it in the software system so we can kind of see how much we're going to spend the rest of the year. And wages and benefits are about 75% of our total budget, so if those are looking okay, then in general, we're probably going to be okay. And I think we're more than okay. I think this is a reflection of a responsibly developed budget as well as, operating in a way that is within our parameters.
Any other questions for Brittany?
Well, it's not a question. I want to say thank you to you and Dr. Burrows for putting this together because it gives us a running snapshot. We have a better handle on this. Instead of at budget time looking at a whole year, we can kind of see what's happening throughout the school year, and this gives us a much better, a more clear picture of where the money's going and how it's being spent, and we can talk about it 4 times a year instead of 1 time a year.
Right.
So.
Absolutely.
Anything anyone needs to bring up before we adjourn? Okay, that being said, I take a motion to adjourn, to go into another meeting. All right. All in favor? Okay, we will adjourn to our
Go to a different
annual
site.
meeting in the music room.